Welcome to the Quality of Mind Transforming Business podcast, where we explore the game-changing understanding that can unlock new levels of performance and well-being in the workplace. If you want to be part of the new breed of leaders in business, if you're fed up with the conventional echo chamber, and if you want to be part of a revolution in human potential, then join us. To discover the powerful resource that lives before our psychology.
Hello and welcome to the Quality of Mind Transforming Business podcast series. Today's episode, I've got another lovely conversation lined up. This time, it's with someone who dropped me an email and said they'd come across my podcast and they were intrigued by it. They'd listened to some episodes. So we had a few emails backwards and forwards. And I thought, wow, this guy, he's really curious. He's been on his own journey. And I thought, wouldn't it be great to have this conversation that we're going to have to explore before psychology and quality of mind and put it on the podcast, and hopefully listeners, some of the things we talk about will really resonate. So Adam, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Pierce. Appreciate it. Very excited to be here today.
Brilliant. Now, before we get into the meat of this and do some exploring together, could you give listeners just a couple of minutes on your background and how come you're interested in having this conversation with me? So just give listeners a little bit of feel and flavor for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I think to contextualize this, hearing a few of your podcasts, it made me say, here's somebody who kind of gets it and is putting a message out into the world that sounds like something that I'd like to know more about or contribute to or be a part of, whatever that looks like. And that's why we're having this conversation. Because first and foremost, I was a fan of yours. So thank you. Thank you for doing what you do.
Lovely to hear.
And I don't know, this is the interesting kind of quality of mind thing. It's like, I don't know where the inception point was for me as an individual. Where did I kind of fully come online? I point back to this moment that had nothing to do with my parents, had nothing to do with where I was brought up. Something had already filtered into who I was. But in 1998, I was a sophomore in college. I got it into my head. A few of my buddies were going to Alaska to work in the salmon industry. And I said to my folks, hey, man, Mike and Matt, they're going to Alaska. I would love to go with them. And they just gave me all the reasons why it was a bad idea and it was dangerous. And, I was 20 years old. And I kind of had to put my foot down. I just said, I thought to myself, if I don't do this now, then I'm putting it off to the next time I get an opportunity to do this. And then I might then waver at that opportunity and then the subsequent one. And so I'm the guy that kind of unplugged the umbilical, if you will, went to Alaska, worked in the salmon canning industry. While I was there, I read a book called Shogun, a novel of Japan by James Clavell. That just blew my mind to the point where I said, when I come back from this trip, I'm going to walk into the first martial arts school that I can find. I'm going to study martial arts. I started studying martial arts. That made me realize that there was all this other latent potential that I had. I then decided, after I got my degree in systems engineering from Virginia Tech, which was not a small feat, I crammed 4 years of education into 6, as I like to say.
Yeah.
And I moved to New York City to pursue stand-up comedy in the wake of September 11th. And so I felt like when kids, first of all, I'd already had that rip the umbilical out in 1998, 2001. I graduated 2002. I feel, well, when kids stop moving to the big city to pursue their wild and crazy dreams, well, then the terrorists really have won. Moved to New York, did stand-up. Because of my love of engineering and martial arts, I became really good at being personal training and coaching. The next crisis that befell us was the financial crisis in '08. By then, I had been in 70 or so television commercials, was very successful, but I wasn't independently wealthy, and the financial crisis hurt. And in the wake of the financial crisis, I opened Atomic Total Fitness, a personal training studio, rode the boutique training studio wave in Manhattan for over 13 years until the next crisis, COVID, hit, made it illegal to meet face-to-face. And that's what we were, a face-to-face handshake business. And now in this kind of next iteration, Adam 3.0 or 5.0, wherever we are, I'm operating this company, Everest Longevity, that has 4 pillars: creating alignment, What do you want? Who are you? What are you all about? Prepping you if you haven't ripped that umbilical out, getting you ready to make that jump and really do and become the person you always wanted to become, making sure that's backed up with physical vitality, all of the things that you need, like sleep, diet, exercise, check-ins with your doctor, all of the things that you can do now that modern science affords us to be able to really keep track of the metrics of living as long as possible, to living to 100. The third pillar is tribe. That's connecting with your community. I mean, I could say I'm operating in tribe right here. You and I connecting is expanding my tribe. You're part of my tribe, Pierce, from now on, man. You don't get to get out. I mean, you'd really have to go out of your way to upset me, truthfully. And even then, I'd probably leave the door open a crack. And then last but not least, my father was a financial planner, and he passed away in 2022. And that's a seminal moment for anyone who has a father and is connected with them. He and I were close. He was a financial planner. I always looked at fitness, the decisions that you make, the time that you have in the world is an investment. You're investing your time, or you're investing your energy in something. And I realized I've been helping people live as long as possible, as well as possible for nearly 20 years. What's the one thing that's missing? And that is a financial conversation. So 2.5 years ago, I partnered with a financial planning firm here in New York, in the tri-state area. They've been around for 90 years. You know, they have billions and billions of dollars of assets under management, all that good stuff. But ultimately, I have this powerhouse in my corner of people that have been doing this for generations to be able to have that conversation. So I do feel like I finally have the full package from a programming longevity perspective, and I'm looking to connect with other like-minded people. So again, thank you for having me on. That's why I'm here today, is to have a great conversation with you.
Yeah. Thanks for the context and background. And you know, you've obviously had a real variety from martial arts to stand-up comedy to fitness training to what you're doing now. So lots of life experience. And it seems like it's sort of culminated in a kind of a whole life approach with those pillars of, you know, nutrition and health and finance and, of course, mind, right? Which is where we're probably going to talk about.
Yeah, that's where it starts for sure.
Yeah. In everything that you see and when you help people on this kind of whole life thing, what would you say is the true secret sauce? And I think probably given where you started with your own seeing your own potential in martial arts, but what would you say is the secret sauce for people that unlocks all the other bits?
My training and experience tells me that, yes, there is secret sauce. However, that key to unlocking that secret sauce is as different and as varied almost as there are human beings and individuals in the world. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't use formulas and schemes and programs and thought structures to access that for each individual. I mean, goodness gracious, you got to try. I've tried everything and done everything more or less to get to that point. And I'm still studying to this day. But the secret sauce, to just put a pin in that, is at some point in time, you need to recognize that there is a core in your being that is sacred and untouchable, that is really only you and only the area that you occupy, whether you're a spirit or not, whether you live on after you're dead, I don't care. But that core needs to make the decision. That core needs to be on board, because as soon as you or I try to come up to somebody and say, hey, you know what you should do? You should journal every day, and it's going to change your life. And they'll go, oh, that sounds like a great idea. I always wanted to journal, right? Yeah, I'll do it. And that core being or whatever that is inside goes, not doing that. I'll do it for 3 days, but I'm not doing it for a month or the rest of my life.
It's so interesting you say that, because my background is, you know, in positive psychology, NLP, loads and loads of tools and techniques, right? And I had a bit like yourself, a huge bookcase full of things I could offer people, and you know, tool for that, technique for that. And sometimes they'd resonate with people, and sometimes they wouldn't, right? Because there was something else there at play, right? So they had an effect, but they weren't the universal game changer. They could be useful tactically, let's call it. And I suppose what I spent the last 10, 15 years doing is going, what is it that is universally available? And that's where I've come up with quality of mind before psychology. Now we'll get into that. And we'll
Love it.
come back to that secret sauce thing in a bit, because I think there's a couple of things I want to pick up on what you said. But before we do that, I just want to make sure we also just get clear on, you kindly said at the beginning you're a fan, you've listened to some podcasts, etc. Having listened to those, and this being sort of the first time we've had a proper conversation apart from email,
Yeah.
when you were listening to that, were there particular questions or comments or, oh, I don't really get that bit, or what's he mean by that? Because it might be that you've got the same one as listeners, and then we can get into that, and then we'll circle back around to secret sauce. So
Sure. Absolutely.
what occurred to you as you were listening to it and exploring it? I'd love to know.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to remember them off the top of my head is actually who the guests were, so please forgive me. But what I found that was an ongoing theme throughout almost everything that I watched or listened to was that I was saying, okay, I get it. There's this almost like precognitive thing that's going on, or it's like, again, like I'm talking about like speaking to the being or the true person or whatever. And again, I'm not trying to be all spiritual, which you should be. We should be. That shouldn't be something we need to even have a caveat to. But I was like, well, what is it? What is it, Pierce? What are we doing? What is your thing? How do you do it?
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm emailing this guy. He's got something going on. He's been doing this for a long time. He doesn't sound like he's full of it. And he's got a lot of testimonials. So I'm like, that's cool. I want to see what that's all about.
I'm curious, and this is not a test or an exam at all. You can say what you like. But did you, as you were listening, and I don't know how much you listened to and what precisely you listened to, but that question you had in your mind, what is it? Did that ever get a little bit clearer? I mean, even if it got clear and it being not clear, did you get a sense of what it was that I was kind of pointing to?
I think so. It wasn't like I heard something and was like, this is confusing. This is crazy. It's so vague. I don't see how anyone could connect with it. I mean, if anything, I was saying, you know what? It's intriguing enough to me for me to reach out.
Yeah.
It sounds like this guy's on the same page as I am. And what I said was the techniques for unlocking the human being's potential, or the potential for unlocking a human being's potential, to use the same word twice in the same sentence, but is that you have to come at it all guns blazing from all angles. Okay. And the reason why I say that is that if the person is open and if they're receptive and they're saying, I just simply want to figure this out. I mean, I would like to think that you have something that is the thing that can just transform every single person's life on the planet. But at the same time, I know that even just based on your presentation as a human being, somebody might say, well, I don't like him because his hair's too long, his hair's too short, right? And so I don't care what his message is. I just don't like the messenger. And then sometimes that can get in the way. And that's the human being psychology aspect of it that, you could spend a doctoral degree trying to figure that out. But I think that, again, openness and, I operate by this philosophy. The more you give, the more you receive. And I give as if I am not expecting to receive. I am giving as if I am so full and so abundant that I don't need to receive anything in return. So it's not a quid pro quo. It's not, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you. It is, I'm good. I'm going to be all right. I've put in the time. I've put in the work. I know that this life is fleeting and life is short. And if I could get somebody else to get onto that frequency and that wavelength, we don't have anything to argue about. All we have to do is grow.
Yeah. And you're so pointing in the direction.
And I felt like that's what you were talking about.
And I can see now why it resonated with you. And I use the word resonate rather than understand, because I think what we're talking about here, to use that horribly overused word spiritual, it is spiritual. And all spiritual means, I mean, the way I describe it is before psychology. I basically mean spiritual. If I use the word spiritual, people have all this kind of, guru. And so it's just another phrase to get people curious. But what it really means is it's beyond concept. It's something that has to be realized rather than just known or read about.
Oh my God, I love it. It's right? The way that can be spoken of is not the eternal way.
Exactly, right?
Yes.
So it's more than an intellectual get. Now,
Yes.
the challenge we have in our modern society is when people are listening to our podcasts or our YouTubes or our blog posts, whatever, they're trying to intellectually go, well, what is it? Well, what's he pointing to? Is it this? Is it that? Is it this? They're comparing it to something else. They're going, well, I don't understand. He hasn't really said what it is. Is he being vague? Blah, blah, blah. But if they don't buy into that noise too much, they can resonate with something underneath. Like you said, I didn't really get what you were about, but it kind of felt like it was pointing where I'm pointing, right? So it's more of a resonance than an understand. Yeah. Now, you said a really interesting thing. Is there one thing that Piers has that clears it all up and blah, blah, blah? I'm going to say yes and no, right?
Nice.
I'll say the no first for the reason that you said, is that every single human being has an individual psychology, right? Which plays defense, right? Which gets in the way. And if they don't like the messenger, they don't like, that's individual to all of us. And who knows what's going on in there for people. So that's the bit we can't universally say, oh yeah, don't worry, this is going to clear it up for you, because you don't know.
You plug into this, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. Now, if that personal psychology is not playing defense, right? And I'm talking to Mo about how I think we can make it stop playing defense so much. There is something universal that is available for all of us, which is I use the phrase secret sauce. I talk about it's really the essential realization. And it's taken me I'm 52 now and I'm been in this game for 25 years to work it out. But the thing that I think, and I'd love to get your take on this when I've explained a little more, is that's in the way is what I describe, to give it a bit of a language, is the case of mistaken identity, right? So we've been brought up and conditioned innocently, invisibly, to believe that we are this me, this avatar me, this Piers, this Adam, this whoever it is. I was born, as I say, 5 decades ago. I probably got another 4 or 5 left in me if I'm lucky, whatever. I'm this body mind. That's me. And my job is to go into the world and make the best of it as I can. But there's a separate me that's the epicenter, if you like. Now, in moments, people might go, oh yeah, but you can have some lovely experiences where you feel more about universal, you feel more unity, you feel you are one. Maybe you just look at a beautiful sunset and you melt into that, or you fall in love, or you're with your kids or whatever. So we can have experience of being more universal, but fundamentally we believe we start with me, right? And that's the epicenter. Now, that's the case of mistaken identity. What I mean is we think we are this me. Now, what I've started to resonate and realize, and this can only be realized, but I'll just say it now and see, what you make of it, is that when we go into what I call direct experience inquiry, and you may have heard me use those phrases before, right? Direct experience. And what I mean by direct experience is we actually look at what's going on within the nature of the human experience in this moment without reference to anything we've been taught, any constructs, any beliefs, any learnings, any concepts. As if I use 2 frames. Either imagine we're a Martian or an alien, it's just been popped into this body mind and has none of our conditioning, or you're like a 4-year-old, right? Same thing.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
And if you, and anyone can do this in any moment, and I've got loads of videos on this. If you just then look at the human experience, just notice what there is and what there isn't. And if you start to inquire as to what is there about this, us, what you want to call it, that never ever comes and goes, that is completely consistent, universal, eternal, what is it? Now, if you ask someone that question sort of intellectually, they'll give you answers like, oh, me, the brain, the body. They'll give you, they might even use the word consciousness, right?
Yeah.
They'll give you those kind of answers. But if you actually go fresh, pause, look at the system, as I say, as a Martian, as an alien.
Yeah.
What you start to notice is there's certain things in the human experience that comes and goes. And those are things like thoughts, right? Everyone can go, well, yeah, a thought comes and goes. I had one about lunch and then I had one about breakfast, and they come and go, right? Sure. Feelings, sensations. Yeah, they come and go. Whether that's what we might call an emotion or even I'm hot, I'm cold, they come and go, right? Perceptions, as in what we see, hear, smell, they come and go, right? All of those things are coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. So they can't be what we are fundamentally because they come and go. Right?
Okay. Yep. You're saying what
what is there
doesn't come and go?
eternally, essentially, universally that never
Interesting.
ever goes, right? It can't be anything that's perceived, felt, or thought because they come and go.
Yep. Okay. Very cool. I'm tracking with you. I like it.
So
I like it.
Stay with this. Now,
Yeah, please.
here's the thing. We mentioned case of sake and identity. Now, how do we know? Let's say we're having a conversation with this Martian, this alien who's just popped down from space. And by the way, they can speak English to make it helpful for us, right?
Thank you.
And they're like, well, how do you know you're a you? How do you know you're Adam? How do you know your peers? How do you know you're a human being on this planet? And you'd have to go, well, I kind of been told. I look down and I see my fingers.
Yeah.
I look over there and I see a tree. I can look in the mirror and I can see this body, and I can feel stuff. But all of those things that tell us what we are within thought, perception, and sensation.
Yep.
We're aware of them. Now, in moments of what we might call flow state, the zone, I mean, you'll know this in martial arts, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We would even say, I lost myself in that sunset. I lost myself in that song. I lost myself in that book. I lost myself in cooking, dancing, singing, even the spreadsheets, right? I lost myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what we mean there is there was no me playing around in my psychology right then. There was just the isness of whatever there was.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't happening to a me. It wasn't happening by me. You could argue it's through me, but really what we're saying is when we're really in flow, and flow we mean resourcefulness, peace, love, resilience, imagination, all that beautiful stuff that comes in flow, there's no me. Right? So therefore, what you start to see is, the idea of it being me-centric, the self being a separate entity, is a thought creation. It's not fundamental.
Interesting. Nice.
Right? It's not fundamental because in order to have an awareness of me, it has to turn up within perception, thought, or sensation. I'm aware of peers.
Right. Of the concept of peers.
Well, and I've been told this concept is more than a concept.
Yeah, it's important.
I've been told it's what I am.
Yes.
Right?
No differentiation.
Right. And because sometimes, I look down and I think, well, I end at the end of my fingers, surely. I end at the end of my head. And in the mirror, there's this peers guy. But the only reason I think I end here is I've been told that.
Right.
And you could say it feels different. So if I touch here, I'm touching my finger now, podcast listeners, and then I touch the air, it feels different. That doesn't mean I'm separate. It just means there's a different sensational feedback, right?
I would even tell you, and again, for the dear listeners out there, I'm holding my hands up about 6 inches apart. And if you do little circles with your hands 6 inches apart, you actually can start even closer.
Yes.
This is an old Qigong thing to teach you where the energy is. You start maybe, I don't know, the width of a penny or a nickel, just a shilling. You take a coin, the thickness of a coin, and you do like a little circle, like you're massaging your hands, but you don't touch, and you will start to feel.
Well, that's Reiki, something. Right? There's loads of, healing.
Yeah.
So we know,
but sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. It's interesting. So we can kind of, but we're saying the energy doesn't even stop at 1 inch. It's all the same mental field, if you want to call it that. There's you could call it the quanta, whatever you want. It doesn't matter. But let's get back to making this as simple as, it's not easy, but simple, right? So the case of mistaken identity is that we've been innocently, invisibly conditioned to think that we start at me and end at me. And the body mind is an entity. It's a fixed thing that has, this is what, physicalism, materialism tells us, then has a brain that can have conscious experiences of seeing a tree or tasting chocolate or feeling velvet. And we're told that the material world of atoms and molecules creates this brain that then experiences matter, right? Now, if you go back to our direct experience, remember being the alien, right? The Martian,
Yep.
has anyone ever experienced this material world of trees and buses and people and things outside of the mind? Has anyone ever experienced the material world of atoms and molecules and things outside of the mind?
I mean, I think some people do claim to, or if you look at dreams.
But if you go to direct experience, even dreams, if you still the mind, if you go to direct, you could theory all you want on this, but if you go to direct experience, right, the Martian now,
Yeah.
the Martians say, well, your scientists are saying that there's a material world out there that came first, and that created atoms and molecules, that created a brain, that creates consciousness, that then,
Okay.
how do you experience this world without the mind?
I see what you're saying. I'll make a jump, and if I miss the point, well, then you'll correct me. But
Great.
if what I'm gathering, you're basically talking about the world arising out of the fact that we actually have something to perceive it and record it, meaning that our thought would precede material, that this is a world built of thought.
You can use the word thought, consciousness, awareness, whatever you want.
Consciousness, yes.
But science, of course, at the moment tells us the opposite.
Right.
But what my kids learn in school is they're told materialism, physicalism, which is there's matter, right, which is where they've broken down into molecules and atoms and nano things and quarks, and then they try to make reductionists, try to make it smaller, to try and find the source of consciousness.
Right.
And about 25 years ago, a bit more now, David Chalmers, this scientist, said, we can't find the source of consciousness in the brain. We can't find it in matter. Right. And then science carried on looking, making it smaller and smaller, still couldn't find the source of consciousness. Now, to me, the Martian, the aliens come along and goes, well, of course you can't find the source of consciousness in matter. It's the other way round.
It's everywhere. You're in it. It's
right.
like a fish trying to find the water.
Creates the appearance of matter.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's use an everyday metaphor. It's like wearing a virtual headset, right? One of those games, like let's say you're playing, I don't know, Grand Theft Auto or whatever, and you're putting the headset on, the virtual goggles, and the world renders in front of you.
Right, of course.
Right? As you move around, it all comes up. But it's all within the headset.
Well, and I would think you could argue, I don't know if you ever read the book Ready Player One, but if you can make the display at a resolution that is higher or equal to reality.
Yeah, it's no distinction.
And then you can put a suit on that will then give you tactile feel.
Right.
You basically would be unable to distinguish the two. And you could then argue that all of this is that we're in a simulation.
Well,
which some people like to throw around, which is kind of a fun
but a simpler one that we experience all the time, dreams, right? Now, we've all probably had the experience of, I don't know, waking up in the middle of the night or in the morning in a very vivid dream, right? The heart's pounding, the body, if you were linked up to an ECG, you'd see the, it's like, it's real, right?
Yeah.
And you've been lying in your bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I use
this. And the mind
phrase,
gives you all of that. The mind gave you that.
It's exactly the same. You haven't, and it's the same when we're awake. We're kind of in a living dream. Dream may be the wrong word, but we're in this perceptual creation.
World of perception. Yes.
Right?
Yes. Agreed.
And it's, I use the phrase, this is a shortcut phrase that I use in Quality of Mind, is everything we experience is real, but not true. Right? Now, it's a little bit of a hack, but what I'm pointing to there is that as you experience something, it's visceral, you feel it, it's real, you can smell it, taste it, it's sensational, just like a vivid dream. Yeah.
Yep.
But with a dream, we know, it's not true. It was just what always happens when I'm asleep. Yeah. But when we are awake, we have an experience that's real, visceral, blah, blah, blah. And we go, no, that's objectively happening outside of me to me. Right? We don't think that's the same as the dream. But they're both real, but never true. Now, I'm using the word true here just to be very clear. What I mean by true is it's not objectively happening outside of the mind. That's what I mean by true, right? There's no objective reality out there.
I see. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Subjective to each individual person. Everybody sees their own reality. Everybody has their own experience. Our senses have all evolved out of the same ectoplasmic
as a species.
Yes,
as a species, we would experience things more similar together than bats would. Right. But we're all hallucinating at one level, right? Now, when we agree on that hallucination, we call it reality.
Nice.
Now, just to make this not be a science lesson or anything like that, why is it useful for us to see this? Because I'm going to come back to case mistaken identity in a minute, but it's useful to see that what we're experiencing is real but not true, because the amount of conditioning we have telling us the opposite, right, reduces our psychological freedom, because we're told our well-being is based on almost like what happens to us, right? So if, let's say that in the workplace, I was having a great day until that email came in from my boss.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Or until I got fired, I got made redundant, or until I heard what my kids were up to, or until I looked at my bank balance, or until I,
Right.
So we think that events and circumstances can determine us.
Yes.
Now, in the game of life, they have an effect, but at the fundamental level, they're just the same as a dream.
Yep.
Right?
Agreed.
So we can then free ourselves from that. And then we can go back to see, because you then might think, oh, well, if that's the case, I better, and this is what I spent 10 years doing, if it's all the mind, I better spend a long time getting the mind really good and smart, having the right thoughts, not the wrong thoughts, having the positive thoughts, having the great mindset. Because if it's all mind, I'm going to work on my mind like anything else. I'll have the best mind out there, then I'll have the best experience of life. Now, I thought that was a clever idea back in the day, but then I realized, that's quite hard to do, because sometimes you can have great thoughts, but not always.
Right.
As you said earlier, right? If you just tell someone, think about it differently, they'd be like, I can't, right?
Yeah. It's done. It's done. Yeah.
I'd like to, but I can't. So then we start to see, hang on a minute. What I'm doing there is this self-me is trying then to have the right thoughts, to have the right experience of the world, to be okay.
Yeah, that's I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. I'm not okay, right?
Yeah.
And
that's hard work. Right?
And again, I like where you're going with this, because there needs to be, on some level, a letting go.
And that's where we come out to the case mistaken identity, right? Because if we can see that there is, and realize rather than understand it just intellectually, that there is no separate me, there is no entity that is me.
Mm-hmm.
There is an appearance within psychology of a separate me. Mm-hmm. I've been told I'm Piers, I'm 50 whatever years old, I end here and I start that, but that's an appearance in psychology. Mm-hmm. If I go to direct experience, I can't find a separate me.
Right.
Because what I start to realize and see is that, and I use an analogy now, and there's a couple of ones we can use here, that imagine the sky and the weather. Okay.
Yep.
So we look out the window and we see the weather, we see the clouds, and we see the blue sky, and we see the rain or whatever. That comes and goes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, that's all happening within what we call the sky.
Right.
Yeah. Now, the sky is there regardless. The sky never comes and goes.
Right. Above the weather. The weather is at a certain level of the atmosphere, but if you flew up, but you could always fly above the weather.
Yeah, but I suppose what I mean in this is a metaphor, so there's a limitation to it. You're quite right. But okay, I'll give you another one.
I thought you were going to say the sun's always shining behind the clouds.
Well, no, not even that. No. Let's use another one then. The screen in the movie, the screen in the Netflix, right? Because if we see that in the metaphors, the sky and the screen are the space in which the activity of weather or the activity of a movie turns up on. Right? Now, let's take it out of the metaphor and go into awareness, if you want to use that word, or consciousness. So what you start to see is that there's the coming and going within the awareness of what we are, all our thoughts, perceptions, and sensations that we mentioned. That's like the weather. They come and go, right? But there is something that's there before, but it's not me. Because we think that something that's there before, our soul, we might call it, or whatever, is kind of like still a property of me, is still an entity. And what I've realized is that no, actually what there is that what I truly am, the only bit of me that's really always, eternally and universally, consistently there, is the capacity for awareness. The sky, the screen.
Yes.
Now with or the room, if you want to use that analogy.
I think that's very eloquently put, really. I think that's very eloquently put, because because I was thinking about this alien, and maybe the alien, he, she, it, whatever, this creature has traveled across light years, through time. And in order to get here, maybe our time span is tiny. They see time is relative, right?
Well, okay, so here's another question. This is the question to direct inquiry, but let's take your point there, Adam.
Yeah.
How do we experience time?
By the rotations of the Earth and the revolutions
how do we
around the
experience
sun.
That's a science answer. If you're 10 years old, not 6, but if you're 10 years old, how do you experience time?
Oh, no, you probably don't. You probably aren't experiencing much time.
Well,
or it's like school or whatever you're in, an activity, there's some reference point. But I mean, I would argue, the younger you are, the less you experience time.
Exactly.
The older you are,
right?
the more you're very aware that time is running out.
And that's why kids will say, oh, when are we going to the playground, the park? And you'll say, tomorrow. And they say, well, can it be tomorrow now? Right?
Yeah.
So, but the technical answer, how do we experience time, is through thought and perception. Right? Without thought and perception, there's no time.
Right. Well, and it's also arbitrary because we're using Earth units of,
but that's all
time.
Thought. That's all concept.
Of
right?
course.
So without thought and perception.
What I wanted to just put in there that was kind of a nice thing that I just thought of is that if you look at the evolution of life on the planet, and this is something I do give a lot of thought to because it's just fascinating. What was the purpose? Why? Why did life start? Well, we may never be able to figure that out. But ultimately, what does life do? It perpetuates itself. It tends to organize matter. It tends to increase its perception, right? So it starts off as a single cell, multi-cell, organelle, then becomes something that has a little dark spot that can sense the changes of light. Next thing they know, that becomes an eye, on the top of the head because of the sun, and the animals are different colors on the tops and the bottoms, and they,
you're pointing
all the way up through dinosaurs, all the way up to.
You're pointing to an interesting point there at a different level, right? So the point you're pointing to there is there seems to be, I would call it, an intelligence to the way form and perception evolve, right? There seems to be an intelligence, an entropy that the scientists would call it, right?
Yeah.
To that, which is doing some of the things that you talked about, right? And there seems to be a wisdom and intelligence. It doesn't always agree with what we think, but, as a separate me. Yeah. But let's just get back to the core here just for a moment, because this is so important, right?
Yeah.
So what we're pointing to, this case of mistaken identity, just to recap in case you've lost listeners, right, is that we've been told we are this me, there's a separate me, I'm an entity, I have thoughts, I experience this, it's all happening within my body mind, and then I need to go into the world and do the best job I can to try and manage the world or have the best thoughts about the world, even if it's not going well, etc. Now, what we're saying is actually the only way we experience the idea of me is through thought and perception and feeling, and we know that's not fundamental because they come and go. Now, what is fundamental about us is this capacity to experience thought and perception. So the weather is never fundamental, but the sky is. The TV show or the movie you're watching is never fundamental, but the screen could be within the metaphor, right?
Yeah.
So what my true identity or the true identity, I'm not really a who, I'm a kind of a part of the what.
Sure.
And within my own, then let's call it individuated experience of the world, it looks like there's a separate me, which is really helpful for navigating the world, but it's not fundamentally accurate to say that it's what I am. And let's then build back in the intelligence point of the system. So rather than what we try and do in the world of nowadays in the world, and especially in the world of personal professional development, which is improve myself to have either the right world or the right thoughts and the right things, is we start to see actually, because I'm a bit player in this, the separate me can't really choose what happens. Yeah. But if I spot that there's something bigger at play, and I kind of get out of my own way in trying to seek things or protect things, there's this intelligence that comes through.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That sorts stuff out. To put it in practical terms, it sorts stuff out. We find resilience, creativity, inspiration, love, growth comes through when we de-identify, de-self-identify, stop identifying with the me.
Yeah, I love it. And what I would follow that up with is, let's say that's the avatar, Pierce. That is
good way of saying
when
it.
we stop identifying with the avatar, Pierce, and go to the core of the I am.
Yeah.
I am the guy that moved to New York to do stand-up. I am the guy that has started companies.
Well, I would put a comma after your I am there.
Yeah.
So it's interesting what you just did there. Beautiful, beautiful. So we've got the I, and then after the am, we add stuff in. I'm the guy that did stand-up. I'm the guy that did martial arts, right?
Right.
When you say the I in that sentence, what are you referring to?
Well, I guess what I would say is that is the intelligence that I deferred to when I made those decisions.
Got it.
Because if Adam made those decisions, Adam's a wimp. Adam is a scaredy cat. Adam listens to everything that his parents tell him, and he plays by the rules. But the I am knows that Adam really is not. Adam can just be
spot on.
A child, an entity, a nice concept to keep around, so people will recognize this body when I walk into the room. But essentially, that core of my being that has allowed me to be a chameleon, to basically shed. I will shed.
Avatars.
That's the thing is, I will shed avatars. I have a whole bunch of them that I can just pull out. I also did a lot of acting. And I tell you what, if you have to play a murderer, you don't become a murderer.
It's a lovely metaphor, that, isn't it? Because when the curtain
or
stops,
a scientist, or you name it. But I just made it like an extreme example. But like, there's stories throughout acting where Heath Ledger plays the Joker. He inhabits it too much. It ends up poisoning his soul. It poisons him as a human being.
If we can use that as a metaphor, it's a beautiful metaphor, right? Because the actor playing the character,
right? Yeah,
it's a bit like this true I and this self.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, the character Batman or the Joker can never know Heath, right? The character can never know the actor.
Yes,
so this avatar Adam or his avatar Piers doesn't really know what it is.
True. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yes.
And then what happens is, when it's out the way, the true I comes through.
Yeah.
Right? So the other little, reference I would use is this cultural reference makes sense. If you saw Clark Kent down the gym doing dumbbells, you'd probably be thinking, does he not know who he is? Right? Did you not know?
Is he lifting 5 pounds or is he lifting 1,000 pounds?
No, he's lifting like he wants to get strong. He's worried he's getting weak. Right?
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
You were thinking, hey, take your glasses and your jacket off. You'll realize what you are.
Oh, interesting. Right? Okay. Got it.
Now,
yeah, cool.
This is a bit like, I think, the alien Martian looking at us going, look at those guys struggling with their mental health, right? At the avatar level, at the Adam level, the Piers level, whatever. If they realize what they truly were, the big I that you mentioned.
Yes, the capital I, yes.
They would not be doing that. They would not be metaphorically down the gym pushing dumbbells. They would just see what they truly were.
Yeah.
And to me, the silver bullet, the essential realization that's available to absolutely anyone, doesn't mean they're always going to have it because of their personal psychology.
No, go. I'm listening. Give it to them.
Recognize in any moment when the avatar is playing out, not realizing what it truly is.
Yep.
Right? Now, when the system sees that, it taps into or unshackles all that psychological freedom, all that intelligence, that wisdom, all of that stuff. And the world then shifts from looking causal to come and get me that I need to do something and protect and seek, to being something that is just to be lived, right? So we go from trying to control the world, protect ourselves, to just being in the moment, responding to what is, with all the things that our programming has evolved to over the years, and that be individual for each of us. But we get unshackled. Now, all of us over our lives will have bounced in and out of that, right?
Right.
But what we're talking about with quality of mind before psychology is increasing the ratio, if you want to call it that, of how often we're in that space, the true I, versus the what we've nicknamed the avatar space. And that I use them, you might have heard it on my shows, I call about the aperture, right?
Okay.
It's what aperture are we in?
Yep.
And the biggest thing that shifts the aperture is recognizing what we truly are and seeing through the case of mistaken identity. Now,
That's wonderful.
what do you think of all of that? I try to sort of lay it out in a roundabout way, but what does that sound like to you?
First of all, it sounds a lot like what my experience has been over the
Good.
course of my 25 years in my career. I'm 48. I was going to say, whatever you're doing, Pierce, you must have found something, because it seems to be like definitely the fountain of youth. You could not have fooled me that you were 52 years old.
Oh, that's my Zoom filter, right?
Oh, nice. Well done. Well done. Well, no, but even then, even if I wasn't looking at you, and I think I've been guilty of this a little as well, and that is that I come across as younger than I am for good reason, probably because I've unburdened myself somewhat systematically over time to try to retain the connection to that thing that said, you can do it. Go for it. Nothing can hurt you. You're unstoppable. Okay. And that voice was a quiet whisper when I was 20 years old. And now, just as you said, I am doing my darndest to fully inhabit that voice all the time. And of course, things throw me off, things that get me upset, things that don't go my way, things that are, of this world. I am not Buddha or Jesus, right? I have not attained full nirvana and enlightenment. But that being said, I think that there's a big difference between zero and something, right? There's a big difference between ignorance and not trying, and at least getting to that point where you're saying, okay, I've got some foundations as to way this experience seems to work for everybody. And the way that it works is, the more that you latch on to this avatar and the more that you really have to have things your way for you, that tends to bring on the suffering.
Right.
And the more that you can step into the universal, the I Ching calls it the sage, the way of the sage. And that is this universal being that is essentially enlightened, that, isn't going to get you into trouble, but at the same time might get you into trouble just for the fun of it, so it's not taking things so seriously. There's a funny book, I don't remember, but the title was something about the situation is terminal, but not serious.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever crossed that.
I know that phrase. And when we're in an open aperture, we see that. And I want to just point to something you said, because I think it's spot on right what you've experienced and how you described that just now. Now, let's imagine there's someone listening going, okay, how do I step out of the avatar into more this I that we've talked about? How do I de-identify? How do I start self-identifying? Now, this is the key thing that I think is so key for people to spot, because there's lots of tools and tactics you could use. You could do some breathing, you could do some vagus nerve stuff, you could go for a run, you could do some yoga, you can do meditation, some mindfulness.
Yeah.
You could have a gong bath. Beautiful things to do. Brilliant. But actually, the fundamental thing that helps this happen more often, to decrease the ratio, and we're never going to be 100% enlightened. I just don't think, one level we are, but never in the human experience, right?
Yeah.
Is to have the realization, and it is a realization, not an intellectual get, but it's available for anyone, right, of what we truly are. And once we've had that realization, the way I look at it, it's a little bit like a valve goes in the system, right? We've kind of seen it. We've woken up. Now, that doesn't mean in our days we're not going to get caught out. It just means it means that the aperture will close and we won't see it, but when it does, it pops back to the awakened state again, right? And that's why those moments of being caught up in the avatar Adam will become more fleeting, and actually will become more like a 2 or 3-year-old, you know, when they tantrum and then they don't, right? So the aperture will close, we'll get caught up in the avatar, we'll think the world's a shit show, we'll get all caught up, and then pop, we come back out, we see it, our resilience comes in. Oh yeah, I've got wisdom now. I was caught up for a bit. But the ratio of how long we spend in the contraction aperture and the expanded aperture changes.
Yeah.
And that comes from having a realization. Now people might be saying, okay, so now you're saying whatever realization, how do I have a realization? Is there an app I can download for realization?
Yeah, good follow-up. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
Because that question was in my mind for ages. I go, well, it's not tools and techniques. I can see it's not that. So what is it? And that's where I came across and where I am now is the best, most elegant way to help someone, point someone in the direction of it, and it can happen in any moment, it's non-linear, is through this direct inquiry, direct experience process, by stripping us back in any moment to what can we see and know and observe right now with, this is the key bit, without reference to anything learnt, conceptual, me-based, construct-based, like the Martian would, right?
Could I interject something, Pierce?
Yeah, sure.
Because, and I think it's important for you actually, and for both of us, because you say that, and I'm like, I'll give you straight up 2 things. One, I'm like, oh, that's one. It's scary. Like, whoa, what is that going to be? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
I'm going to lose myself. It's an attack on my on my avatar. I'm going to dissolve my avatar. I'm not going to exist anymore. I'm freaked out. The other thing, that's the main thing. The other note was, or that I thought was, I'm sure you're familiar with trans-theoretical model of behavior change.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, there's this awareness, which I think you're talking about, which then leads to the willingness to make preparation and think about changing. So if I'm understanding you correctly, a lot of the stuff that you put out is about developing an awareness that there could be something that you could change. Because in that case, I would say, yes, I want to do this thing if I know that it's not going to be scary or freaking out.
What I would say, and it's really interesting where you went with that, because what I'd be saying to someone, if they're my client, is you've got to put a lot more full stops in rather than commas. So where your mind went was into all the possible implications of what what you think I'm saying. Right. And that's totally natural because you're a learned, intelligent person. Right. So went to, well, do you mean this? So what happened there? Blah, blah, blah. And all we're saying to start with is just notice. But here's the thing. So I'll just finish the loop because it's easier. Right. So just notice not what the mind comes up with in its content of, well, is this like this? And am I going to lose myself? And all this kind of stuff. No. We're not interested in the content. We are literally looking at the capacity for awareness, not what the mind comes up with. So there's something around all the thoughts and perceptions and feelings that come up, right? So in a way, we're not looking, it's like if you're watching a Netflix, someone goes, oh, do you like the screen it's played on? And they're like, I'm in the movie, mate. What are you talking about, the screen? Right? Have you not seen that character? They just said a joke. It was so funny. I'm going, look at the screen. Right? No one looks at the screen when they're watching the movie because they're in the movie.
Yes.
So we're saying the first thing we need to do is to go, hang on a minute. In this direct experience inquiry, I'm not interested in what the mind says with all its implications, and because that's all learned. Right? Oh, do you mean this? Am I going to get lost in this? Blah, blah, blah. I'm looking at what is there that doesn't change. Right? What is there that isn't thought, feeling, and perception? Now, to start with, that sounds like a complete headbend because you're like, how can I look at something that isn't about looking? You know, it's like, oh, the head goes bonkers, right? The mind
Right.
I can't do that. It's stupid. Actually, once we do it a few times, we just find, oh, yeah, I get that. It's not conventional, but we can start to see, we can pull apart the content of our experience, everything we think, feel, and perceive, which is everything you just told me for couple of minutes just then, and the space that that's happening in. And what we want to start getting curious about is, what's that space? Not what am I thinking about it? What's the nature of it? It's a very gentle observation, and it's more, and in a way, the trick with this is not to have an answer that is, oh, I know what it is, Piers, it's this, and this, because that's just the mind coming up with more kind of concept.
No, and then you're also trying to, well, you've essentially rationalized your way out of any type of change or transformation.
Exactly. So all we're doing to start with, and there's a bit after this, but what we're doing to start with is just spotting, hey, there's something there prior to the activity of the psychology. Now, it's hard to put a name on it, or to, some people go, oh, it feels this. It doesn't really feel anything, that there is a sensing to it, but it's just a spot. There is something there that never ever comes and goes. And when there's a noticing of that, this is the key thing, right? Because people go, what's the point? What's the point? There's no point. Yes, there is a point. Because the point is, when we are in that little moment of noticing, there are no problems. There is no stress. There is no pressure. There's no future. There's no past.
Yes.
There's no me. There's only just love and potential.
It's wonderful. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
So in that moment, there is everything we need. Absolutely everything. Now, then the psychology comes into that. One of the psychologies will being, here's a me, here's a feeling, here's a this. It comes into that, but it never damages that.
No.
Right? Just like the weather can't damage the sky, just like the Netflix can't damage the screen, just like if you cook some eggs on your frying pan and it's a non-stick, it doesn't, right?
Doesn't damage.
So therefore we then learn, or we then see, not rather learn, whatever I'm experiencing or feeling or perceiving in any moment, it doesn't actually have any effect on me, true I. It does on the avatar, because the avatar is part of the psychological makeup, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier. There's a bulletproof bit of us.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I can't remember quite what you called it, but you said there's a part of us, a core, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
That is bulletproof to anything we've experienced ever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right? Now, the key thing to know is that core me is not a separate entity. It's part of everything. It's pre-me.
Yeah. And that's where you can say it's a huge leap to make, but people do make it. And these are people that have suffered, horrific traumas that are able to understand that they are able to disassociate from that on some level and simply be connected to what is universal.
Well, yeah. And at one level, and this is not to belittle their experience, it's the same as having a nightmare and then waking up and realizing it's not there.
Yeah, if you could,
right?
I think
it's the same phenomenal, right?
It's hard if the nightmare is wrapping around every perception that you have and you're totally immersed in it. In that case, you may need some other more aggressive intervention.
Well, it might be a stepping stone,
so to speak.
But the fundamental thing that will heal you and solve that living nightmare is recognizing what you are, right? So what I would say is people are maybe a little confused with this, or they're slightly resonating, but also confused, which is usually what I get. I resonate, but I'm confused, right? Is to just play with this, right? And you can do this moment by moment. You can take 1 second, you can take 10 seconds, who knows, right?
Yeah.
Let's say there's something going on and you're feeling a bit head up, right? And you're feeling a bit contracted.
Yes.
And there's lots of different ways in for this. But what you're fundamentally going to do is just go, well, which I is this that's getting upset?
Yep.
You can kind of spot, oh, it's the avatar Adam or the peers doing it, right?
Yeah.
And if I go into direct experience right now, bar the thinking and feeling and sensation I'm having right now, what am I? What's aware of that? And we can go what I call it going back, right? Mm-hmm. We can see there is some part of what we are as a system that is pre that coming and going. And even if it feels awful, right? What we would call awful, we can feel that, the aliveness of that.
Yeah.
Right. And know that that's a fluid, dynamic experience. And we can't die from a feeling, right? We just feel it.
Well, I always say,
if we don't self-identify,
Well, I always say, does anybody have a knife to your throat right now? Do you have a knife to your throat?
Yeah.
Is someone trying to kill you? Is literally, Because
And that's very, very rarely an answer yes.
yeah, you'd be able to definitely know if there was a knife to your throat, if somebody's had a gun to your head that was about to kill you, right? That would be cause for alarm.
Yeah.
But everything else that you're subjectively being impinged upon right now is probably a worry or a fear, which is a manifestation of your mind.
Yes. And you know what one could say is a bit ridiculous, that even if you had a knife to your throat or a gun to your head, so what? That just means the time on the mortal coil might end.
Sure.
But one can argue there's no problem with that either, right?
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's some high level ninja shit, but yeah.
But let's go practical for a moment, right? Let's go practical.
If you can pull that one off, Pierce, then
Actually, funny enough,
you have martyred yourself. Essentially, is what would have happened.
There's
for the cause.
Sometimes in those moments, people do have that experience of it doesn't matter. But let's get back to practical, day to day, everyday world.
Sure.
I totally agree with you that 99% of the stuff that's torturing us or we're suffering from is not life-threatening, right? It may appear to be, but it isn't. So anytime we're experiencing a lack of flow or resourcefulness or suffering, mild or major, it's only ever down to one thing, right? So anytime we're experiencing a lack of flow or suffering, it's down to one thing. And that one thing is a resistance to the isness.
Oh, I love that. There you go.
Yeah. Now, there's only one thing that can create a resistance to the isness. So what we're saying is, anytime we're experiencing a lack of flow or suffering, it's because there's a resistance to the isness. And the only thing that can create a resistance to the isness is a self-identification.
I love it.
If we don't self-identify with the avatar me in that moment, there is no resistance to the isness, and there's no suffering or lack of flow. So if we make this really simple, it's not easy, but simple, we go, okay, anytime there's a lack of flow or suffering, it's resistance to the isness. And the only thing that can create a resistance to the isness is a self-identification. And the only reason we'd self-identify is because of the case of mistaken identity about what we are.
Brilliant.
And in any moment we see through that, in any moment, just for 1 second, we see through that, the psychological burden of that isness drops. The aperture opens, and we've got more resourcefulness and resilience.
Phenomenal. You know, actually, what it makes me think of, and, we'll see if this makes the final edit, but
go for it.
It makes me, what it makes me think, really, because I'm not necessarily trying to create that realization. I would hope that it would come, but the fact that you're very specifically pointing to that realization, I admire that, and I think it's great. It's absolutely great. And what I would say is, if I don't know how long you keep people in your program, or if they exit your program, or if you say, hey, you've graduated or whatever, they get to the point where they feel like they want to do something else. Because this is precognitive, because this is operating at a fundamental level that is universal, and it's not something I would touch upon this, but I would not necessarily, just based on my history and background, it's not necessarily something that I would lead with. I would want to try to sneak in the back door with this. Right?
Do you know what? It's such an interesting point you bring up, because over the last 5-10 years, in the work I do, I've gone more and more what I call direct.
Yep.
So previously I would, by the back door, through stepping stones, point to what I've just pointed, but not straight away, right?
Yep.
I would think, well, people can't cope with that. There's too much noise in the way, blah, 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 blah. And then what's happened over the last 5-10 years, I've got more and more, let's call it direct path.
Sure.
Right? And to start with, a lot of fear around that, going, well, what do people think it's a load of old mess? They don't get it. And then they'll be confused people. But what I found is, to my joy, as soon as I stopped trying, of course, right, often.
Yeah.
I work one-to-one with people over months, but I also do a 3-day program.
Yep.
And a lot of those great testimonials you've seen are people who have just spent 3 days exploring this directly through the Martian lens. And whereas, if you spoke to them halfway through those 3 days, they'd go, I'm just all over the shop. I've got no idea what's going on. It's confusing, blah, blah, blah. It seems to be that by the 3 days of this direct pathway, for a lot of people, that's the best way of doing it, rather than trying to
Yeah.
go through the stepping stones. Because
I
I
see.
think when I was doing stepping stones, I was accidentally chucking too many concessions in. It's like, if you to use the metaphor of someone wanting to learn to swim and you keep throwing in floaties,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
what I've decided to do, why didn't we decide? It just sort of happens, as you know, from the eye. I'm just going to go direct. And
Amazing.
if people run away and think I'm a loon, then fine. But they don't seem to, right? It seems to be there'll be
No,
some
not at all.
confusion.
No, not at all.
So
No.
so
I
the
was just going to say
directness seems to get that.
I was going to say once you've got them all cracked open and ready to kick ass, like send them to me, and then I'll get them into trouble. You know what I mean? Like I'll put them
'Cause
out
what
there
you're
and
doing
say,
is helping
yeah,
their pillars, right?
exactly. There is a bit of a presupposition that they are an operating entity, or there is an operating entity behind this.
Well,
You know?
and of course, once we've had the meta realization, I spent a lot of time with my business clients then going from what I call the profound, that bit, to the practical of
Yep.
how does this work with change management? How does this work with leadership, entrepreneurship? How does this work with my wife or my kids, right? So of course we get into the practical.
Yes,
because
yes,
that's
yes,
just where life hits the road. And this
Yeah.
is not some esoteric load of bobbly boot that sits out there. But what's
Yeah.
beautiful is when we're exploring that, we will still ask questions like, well, which eye is that?
Interesting. Yeah.
And what happens when you do that is it pops them back into that expanded aperture, and then their game of life resourcefulness, I call it the game of life, all the stuff that we do, comes online.
And so fascinating. I mean, this is definitely, I'm going to have a lot of very cool things to think about, and probably follow-up questions that I'll email you.
Do you know what we should do, Adam? I've got an idea for us. We don't have to, I'm going to pretend you have to commit now on the show, but you don't have to. I think because we're running out of time, we should do a part 2, right? And I think the reason we should do a part 2 is twofold. One, because we've only scratched the surface in what you've got to say, and and this kind of stuff. And I think listeners would love that. But also, if we did a part 2, I don't know, in a few weeks' time or whatever.
Yeah.
And you percolate on all of this, because that's the kind of guy I think you are. Come back with all your questions and observations and learnings.
Yes.
And then we could go through that. I just think that would be, if you were up for that,
Yeah.
I think it'd be very rich.
Yeah, it would be. First of all, I'm in because I like it. And I am a yes and kind of guy, not a no but or a yes but. And my and would be, and I would absolutely like to digest what we've talked about today and come back with more questions. Additionally, I would say, so where I've arrived is not only have I all these certifications under the sun that I've gathered for my own personal development, and of course I want to share that experience with people in the world. It's the financial planning conversation.
Okay.
When you start to think generationally, when you start to think about the avatar being gone, and then the next version or iteration of your family, what are you setting them up for? And I would not only want them to have dollars in the bank account, but from an kind of an ancient culture perspective, I would like to fortify my family so powerfully with traditions that don't necessarily become dogma, and maybe they do over time, and it's ego for me to even think about this. But I'm thinking about their well-being. I'm thinking about their ability to be free and experience life. I want to be able to at least create a playbook and a framework that what I am doing is I'm building my legacy. By putting this, I mean, as long as we don't, blow up the internet and everything doesn't shut down, at some point in time, my voice can be digested by my offspring, whether they're blood related or not. My tribe is supported indefinitely.
Right. And what would be fascinating then is to go from the profundity of this into the very genuine, authentic, real desire people have for a legacy financially and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
And I'd love to hear from you about how you facilitate that. And also, what I see with people is when they have this realization that we're talking about, the sense of what the avatar needs to be and a legacy and offer and provide the world changes. It doesn't they all go and sit on a mountain and sell all their possessions. Not at all. But it becomes more we, less me. if I can.
1,000%. And that's exactly what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
it's like people want to have a conversation about physical fitness. In the physical fitness space, which I've been in, for 25 years, it's silly because it's all look at my physical body. It is not a spiritual thing at all. Even they've taken yoga and they've turned it into it's like yoga porn with these beautiful women.
Yeah.
People did yoga so that they could meditate. It's about spirituality. It's about releasing the body. It's about connecting with the infinite, right? And once you get to that place, what I would argue, and this is why I specifically went into financial planning in this phase of my life, is that I can see the finish line. I can see what's coming. I also just had my father pass away, who was a financial planner. So when you witness someone's life trajectory, who candidly wasn't about it was about me.
Yeah.
You see what happens to a person and how they slowly degrade and what they're left with at the end, as opposed to kind of like a transcendence when it becomes something that it's almost a relief. It would have been better if these realizations could have been had.
Yeah, right.
And if those
Well,
realizations would have been had, they would have behaved differently. And then that is how you make the world a better place, is through what you're doing.
Brilliant.
And then taking advantage of and applying what you've learned.
Yes. And I think that, to me, this is why I don't like the word spiritual, because sometimes it stays too philosophical and abstract. To me, this stuff is only rich and valuable when it goes into the areas that you're talking about. And that's why I love coaching in what I do. I'm not just a spiritual teacher. I love getting into what does this mean for the implications for the game of life, right? And I think you've got a lovely take on that. But I think without the first bit of seeing what we truly are, the second bit has a very different shape to it. And it goes back to what you said at the beginning of the call. So,
1,000%. Yeah, no, and it becomes fear-based. It becomes, how many nuts can I hoard?
Yes.
As opposed to how much abundance can I produce and share.
It changes everything. So I need to wrap it up right now.
Yeah, please,
I've got to go. But how about we'll touch base on email, and then we'll put one in for a few weeks' time, and we can kick the wheels on the profundity and then get into what you're saying, because I think there's such a nice implication thread through to something very, very real world and pragmatic. So
absolutely.
Adam, I just want to say at this stage, I've really enjoyed it. Time's just absolutely flown. Love your listening and exploring, and I look forward to doing some more of it.
We'll do it again, Pierce. Thank you so much. Real treat.
Okay. Speak to you soon.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast and want to know more, check out our website at qualityofmind.biz. And also feel free to reach out and leave us a review or a comment. Until next time, have fun being curious.